Good afternoon and welcome everybody. Thank you for making the time. This is an interesting time in the country, in the world, quite literally, with the Covid-19 pandemic. I think if there's any consolation is that we're all going through this together, and so seeking solutions for this is something that is paramount. Everybody in the world is facing the same challenges as far as finding opportunities, not just now, but people are starting to think of what happens post-COVID, starting to think ahead. So we'll get into the conversation in just a little while, but first I think we will start with Brenda Odalo from the Netherlands Embassy. Brenda will have about 5 minutes. She's a senior officer for economic affairs at the Netherlands Embassy. Brenda?
Thank you, Yvonne. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I'll start by saying thank you for inviting me. I think this is quite a relevant topic for us and how we look at it at the embassy. So I'm grateful for that, for the opportunity to speak today. I'll just speak briefly about what the Netherlands government and by extension what the embassy in Kenya does regarding the aspect of youth and youth employment. So about 2 or 3 years ago, we developed a new policy document, and what we wanted to put in it was really have youth at the heart of development programs. And it's a two-pronged approach. So we're focusing on enabling youth through investing in education and also facilitating youth employment, since we look at it like there's the labor market is, there are a lot more youth that get into the labor market than jobs are available. So with regards to education, we look at it through trying to improve the skills of the youth and narrow that gap, and also be able to match it with labor market demands. And with regards to youth employment, we look at it through relevant skills training for youth who have already left, let's say, high school or higher education and are ready to enter the labor market, but perhaps don't have the skills that employers are looking for. So that's what we look for. That's our approach to trying to help youth in the country. For this, we have about 4 major programs supported by the Netherlands Embassy, and at Netherlands government and at the embassy, we look at them. We work with them fully. So the first is the Orange Corners Innovation Fund, and that was developed as a platform to give young entrepreneurs access to training, networks, and facilities, and also enable them to upscale their businesses. Now, for Kenya, we did last year, 2019, we began with quite a small, innovative, if I could say, like a starter pack program with regards to Orange Corners. And what we did was a training of trainers, where we gathered a majority of incubators located outside of Nairobi, and we gave them access, about 6 months of access to training, linking them up with Dutch companies, Dutch CEOs who would be able to train them so that they can be able to upscale their businesses. This was quite successful, and following this year, we will be, the second half of this year, we will be continuing with the program, and we'll be focusing on issues that the youth had raised, which was mainly access to finance and how they can position themselves for financiers or investors to be able to invest in their companies. The second one is NAFIC Orange Knowledge Program. This is it's quite a popular one, but it's based on also giving skills to the youth, and we focus on giving scholarships to students or young people so that they can be able to go to the Netherlands, study a technical skill or a master's degree or anything that will be relevant, and come back and really grow in their career or their job, or if they have their own business. The third program we work with, this was new, it was launched this year, the Challenge Fund for Youth Employment. And this one seeks to create future prospects for about 200,000 young people between 15 and 35 by investing in decent work and income. So for this, we work with partners who we require to provide funding and technical assistance for innovative and scalable projects in the most cost-effective way. So for this, due to the COVID situation this year, for Kenya, it will be rolled out next year, but I'm aware that it already began in Uganda. And then the fourth and final program, which we focuses a lot on refugees and displaced persons, as well as the host communities, and it's called Prospects. So Partnership for Improving Prospects for Forcibly Disabled Persons and Host Communities. And basically we invest in education, entrepreneurship training for refugees and host communities to be able to enable them to participate in the labor market and have prospects through having relevant skills and education. So that's mainly what we focus on. Of course, the COVID situation has made things a little bit different, but we do expect that we'll continue to support youth in the medium and long term. It's quite a sensitive area, if I may say, for the minister. So we shall continue to focus on these issues. We look forward to engaging youth more practically once COVID is over. But the support of the Dutch government is that youth will continue to be supported in the long term. Thanks, Yvonne. I think that's it from me.
Thank you, Brenda, and we'll definitely be coming back to you, I guess, in the course of the conversation, because a lot of what you mentioned is projects and work that was already ongoing pre-COVID, and it would just be interesting to see, what sort of things you're thinking about now going forward. It's obviously a big shift. Thank you, Brenda. So let's now speak to or hear from Mohammed Saad Gad, who's a regional manager at Giza Systems.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Brenda. Let me just start by saying it's a pleasure today to attend such an event coming from Enactus. And to be honest, it is not the first time we attend something with Enactus. We were in a partnership for a quite long time right now, but I feel like we're going to the next level by having such panel discussions, the way we do judging this year, and that's even opening a new door for the idea that we will discuss today. Okay, we faced some challenges as partner to Enactus to let the Kenyan market or even the East African market be aware about what we're trying to do for the university, the students, and so on. And I think by adapting to the new normal right now and doing such online sessions, we may be having a wider platform so we can tell exactly the market, what we can do, the new ideas, and how we have a new youth ideas coming up from the universities, and we should encourage that. Let me tell you something about what we're trying to do as Giza. Of course, we don't have so much programs like what mentioned by Brenda. Thanks for the programs she's mentioned. Actually, we, on our side, as an engineering company, we provide all the kind of mentorship, adding to the technical training, to different kind of technical skills and technical abilities as per the projects we have in this region. Of course, we always adapt some kind of students from different universities. We did that even with Enactus for the past 2 years, I guess, and we working on growing this up more. We had a plan to start our own foundation, Akili Africa, which mainly focusing on education development, because we have our own activities in 3D printing, like the Fab Labs, We have our own engineering abilities to add more and inject more technical skills for the graduates and the new graduates from the universities. So we started initiating Akili Africa Foundation, but unfortunately, due to the current situation, the paperwork have been delayed a little bit. So hopefully by end of this year, we will have our own foundation, which by inertia will be an partner for Enactus already. And we will start doing our own technical skills development programs to the students coming from the universities. For the last year, we started to adopt some certain projects coming out of Enactus, adding to evaluating these projects and trying to, adapt these projects with the targets for the community, for the United Nations goals. So we actually had a very good position last year in the competition, the World Cup competition. Thanks for Jaramogi University, they did a very good job, and they reached the final, the semi-final competition. I hope by this year we can have a serious thing, especially after the new situation we have now. Of course, I know that the new situation is not only a health crisis, but it is also an economic crisis. So we might face some kind of an economic challenges in the market right now, but we also have new doors keep opening up by new demands started to show up in the market. So I think that will help a lot to introduce the new ideas that we keep receiving from our youth over here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mohammed. And that is interesting. For a better part of this conversation, I know a lot of what we're doing is thinking through things because COVID has changed the situation of everything. Nothing is certain, nothing is sure anymore. So I think there's a lot of changes that are just happening as we go. So that is what we'll be doing. Now we begin the panel discussion. Please go into the chat room and leave your comments or questions. I'll be sparing some time towards the end of this, perhaps the last 15 minutes, and we can address those questions and comments. And like Scarlett has put out there on the chat group, please feel free to share everything that we're learning here and post some comments. On Twitter, use hashtag Enactus Kenya Expo. For everyone else that is joining the conversation now, please ensure that you mute your mics so that we can ensure that there's no sound interference. But I think perhaps the place to begin with asking, I might start with you, Dr. Martin. Are you here? Dr. Martin Magu, I think I saw your video here for a moment. Okay, before we get to Dr. Martin, because I can't see him here. Mark, let me start with you. You're a student. You're also the president of Enactus at your students. That's the African Nazarene. What do you see as the opportunities going forward? And it's okay. I think if most of us are still figuring it out, like we said, we're in extraordinary times, surely. None of this was ever imagined or anticipated. But what do you see as a way forward? Even a meeting like this would have been done in a very different style, right?
Yes. First of all, I'd just like to say thank you, Yvonne, and thank you to Enactus, first of all, for allowing me to be on this panel with distinguished men and women like yourselves. Now, moving on to your question about what I feel we can do about what's going on right now, I'll start with a quote by Rothschild. So he's of the opinion that you should buy when there's blood on the streets, figuratively. So what that means is, this is a new normal. What that means is no one was prepared for this. So what I see as an opportunity for the youth is we can leverage our, let me say this first of all, the youth in Africa constitute the largest proportion of the educated people in Africa. So we're more educated than any other age group in Africa. And secondly, in Kenya, we constitute about 75% of the population, 35 and under. So what I think we can do as the youth is leverage our knowledge in technology. We are more tech savvy than any other generation. And what COVID-19 has brought about with it is that more people are working from home. As you've said yourself, even a meeting like this, would under normal circumstances be held physically. So what I think as the youth we can do is leverage this new normal using our skills, especially in technology. Kenya has one of the highest mobile penetration rates in Africa. We have the highest internet penetration rate in East and Central Africa. So what I believe as the youth we can do is leverage on that. Because previously the youth was secluded because they felt we had nothing to bring to the table. Now with this new normal that has been brought about by the coronavirus, with businesses needing to migrate to an online platform, I believe that is one of the things that the youth can leverage. So one of the things we can do is helping brick and mortar businesses to transfer them to an online platform. A lot of these businesses do not have an online presence. Maybe they chat with their clients on WhatsApp, maybe on the social media, but they don't have a strong online presence. So that is one opportunity that the youth can leverage using this new normal. Secondly, people have to understand that this is not momentary. When this started back in March, we all expected that we'll be home for maybe 2-3 weeks, but the situation has persisted until now. And even in the US, they are still reporting a spike. Even yesterday was when Kenya reported its highest number of cases in a single day. So what's clear is this is not about to change anytime soon. So it's not, we are no longer talking about things going back to the way they were. We're now talking about creating a new normal. So as I'd earlier said again, I think the youth now, what we can do is we're helping businesses migrate now from a brick and mortar presence to an online presence. Secondly, we can businesses can also start looking at how they can they can adopt to this new normal. I have a friend who owns an event organizing company, and she was telling me that she has no business right now because that's a social business. It involves people meeting, it involves people interacting. And what I told her is she can look at how she can restructure her business to accommodate this new normal. So I believe that's something we can leverage as the youth. Yes, back to you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks, Mark. Some interesting things there. I mean, even Greta Thunberg, the young environmental activist, has been talking about now being the age of science. And if there was ever any doubt that scientists are more needed now, I mean, it would be now more than ever. But even as Mark has talked about the opportunities that are there, perhaps urging companies to establish a stronger online presence. We all hear of things like working from home, office space, and large office spaces is perhaps going to be a thing of the past. But what sort of preparations do we have for young students who are going out there? Dr. Magu, this one is for you. I mean, even Brenda had spoken earlier about skills matching industry. That's been a big question. Even with the employers, the Federation of Kenya Employers, put out a report saying, there's a skills gap and there's a mismatch between what young people are learning in school. And that was before COVID. So what sort of things will need to change in how we're preparing young people coming out of school for what happens beyond this time?
Thank you so much, Yvonne. Maybe one of the key things that requires to happen is that COVID-19 has brought an opportunity for the youth. As Mark has put it, is that this particular generation, especially the youth, they are techno-savvy. However, we have, from academic point of view, there have been a missing link, as you have rightfully put it, between academia and industry. But what Enactus Kenya has tried to do is to bridge or narrow that particular gap. Some of the key things that academia needs to do is to come up with a sort of research that is directly applied to the industry. And I'll give you an example. Nobody ever thought that we will not be going to the restaurants. And because of the Ministry of Health guidelines, we are not supposed to meet. But most of the restaurants have been able to operate and boost their business by increasing their deliveries. So I see an opportunity for the youth to come up with a sort of a platform that is able to, that is digitally fast and reliable, that can be adopted by various industrial players, so that at the end of the day, the youths get opportunity employment, they make some money, and then and at the same time, the academia can offer a platform for them to train them where they have shortcomings.
And just to stay with you for a moment, Daktari, we've seen youth in school doing some amazing things. I mean, the invention of a ventilator by university students. So where is the gap, therefore? Because it's very clear that youth know what they're supposed to do. They have the skills, they have everything at hand. Because I think there's an issue with turnaround time. I like what you talked about, research that directly applies to industry, but there's usually that gap, even in terms of costing, of finding financiers, of finding support. What, in your view, causes that delay time from the moment of innovation and invention to hitting the market? I mean, we know that they need to go through all these tests, but there just seems to be a lag, even though I guess COVID-19 has sort of pushed us into quicker action.
Of course, the youth already know what they want to do, and some of the challenges they have been facing before the COVID-19 was that they were not being given opportunities to actualize their ideas. And at the same time, they lacked sort of good mentors that will embrace their ideas and assist them to source for funds. I'll give an example of some of the students I've been working with. They have been looking for opportunities to look for donors and funding to actualize their ideas. And they have been actually very successful. I'm very happy that the government is moving away, trying to adjust to the new normal, so that they can also be able to fund and provide this particular funding that in form of a pool, and it is highly easily accessible to the youth, so that they are able to actualize their innovations.
And I think that goes to what I've seen here, a comment that's been made by one of our participants, talking about necessity being the mother of invention. That's Nashan, I think Adero, says COVID-19 has not exposed digital possibilities any less than necessity has been the mother of invention. And to some extent, that's true. Brenda, so what opportunities and support exists for, young people, entrepreneurs particularly, in a post-COVID-19 environment? What is true, Brenda, is that resources and income generation is very low. Companies are struggling, governments are struggling. I think just yesterday, the Cabinet Secretary for Treasury in Kenya said, we've lost 300 billion shillings. And so it's going to be a tough year, and not just for us here, but, for perhaps the more developing nations. So what sort of support and, what exists out there that the young people can say, okay, even in the times of COVID, this is where we can go to? And sometimes the support may not necessarily be financial.
Thanks, Yvonne. Yes, that's a very good question. I think I'll piggyback from what Mark said. There's a real opportunity when it comes to the use of technology and and how it can solve problems during this COVID period. I think from our perspective, we look at it as, especially for countries such as Kenya, really the private sector has the better chance to get us out of this crisis quickly and most effectively. So I do think there's an opportunity with leveraging technology and using it to solve some of the problems we've seen. And the private sector stepping up, of course, in partnership with government, to ensure that once we get out of this, things are back to the new normal, if I can say that. So from the embassy's perspective, that's how we look at it. And the support that will be there, whether technical or financial, will definitely go towards innovations that are, yes, technologically oriented and are going to solve problems in a way that is effective and efficient for a post-COVID reality.
Because people will go knocking on doors and seeking particularly financial assistance, the one thing that's going to be hard to come by is money. So what sort of other technical or what sort of other support should young entrepreneurs be seeking that would enable them go forward? I mean, even financial institutions now are starting to say, and this was, I guess, pre-COVID as well, that, you know, banks not only want to give you money, but they also, you know, want to ensure that in other ways, the business that you're running is sustainable and therefore your ability to pay them back. But perhaps there's been a focus too much on financial assistance. What sort of other assistance would you be talking to everyone that is here right now to seek that would help them get a step up? But Brenda, you can answer that, and then Mark will come to you. I see.
I would say, especially for youth that are entrepreneurs, I would say seek out mentorships. There are a lot of angel investors out there, and I can also speak from the Dutch perspective, who are, number one, have the time. A lot of them are retirees who have had significant corporate experience and have come to Kenya now, have started a small consultancy, but they are very open to supporting youth in enabling them to scale up. So I would say, even before financial, mentorship would really be beneficial. If you can find someone, find a space, you can gather your friends and you come and you hear from people who've been where you've been, or done what you want to do, and learn from them, that would really go a long way. And what you will see after that is that there'll be some sort of catalytic effect. Because once you get a lot of things in order, then investors will be knocking at your door, banks will be coming to you. So there's a lot of, I think, I saw someone said the youth in this generation are impatient. But just taking the time to just learn from people who have been where you want to go, and take really on that mentorship. After that, then I think things will really work out well. So I would say youth can start with, yes, looking out for mentors, people they can speak to, learning from others. I think even YouTube, I mean, a lot of people nowadays launch something from learning from YouTube, or learn how to code from YouTube. But I would say that being able to pick up skills is perhaps something that can be done. And after that, I think there's a lot of money out here, but it's not meeting the right people, if I can say that. So there's a lot of opportunities, not just banks, but a lot of investors. And I think Kenya really has a good reputation for, number one, adopting new technologies, and we still have quite a well-educated population. So it's easy to get things going. Everyone speaks well, not everybody. Compared to our neighboring countries, we have at least a bit of an upper hand when it comes to some ease of moving around, doing business and all that. So I would say, yes, if you can just start with just learning a few things, and if you can find a mentor, also do that.
Okay. Thanks, Brenda. Mark, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I wanted to make a small addition to what I'd said initially. So another opportunity that I see for the youth post COVID-19 is, you see, with the reduced necessity for a brick and mortar business, it means that even the cost of starting a business is much lower right now. You see, for instance, with Zoom has taken approximately it took 3 months for Zoom to get to 100 million users. Instagram took 2 years to reach 100 million users. So what I'm saying is, with the youth, we can either look at this as a disadvantage, we can look at the opportunities that it brings, like what Zoom has done. And secondly, when we were starting out, you said that we should be ideating, we should be coming up with ideas as to what youth can do. And what I'd like to say is, as an Enactus Africa Nazarene, we've already come up with something for the youth. We're already creating employment opportunities for the youth post COVID-19. So, in line with what previous speakers have said, and even in the comment section, we have a lot of problems as youth when you have an innovation. Getting funding or support of any kind from both the private and public sector is really a challenge. I have been through that journey myself. I believe most of these Enactus members here can attest to what I'm saying. It is really a challenge. So, like for instance, what we have done with Nazarene, we had a budget of 1,000 Kenyan shillings. With this 1,000 Kenya shillings, we have created a website. It's called the database.co.ke. The website is active. We've launched it just a few hours ago. So what the database.co.ke looks to do is, we are compiling job market data. So how the website works is, it works like on the face of it, it's like a normal job site, whereby you can get, you create a profile, then you can get full-time, part-time employment, or you can get gigs, or you can get an internship, or you can even volunteer for a company. Now, what we do in the background is, as users create their profiles, we are documenting this data, we are organizing it, we are segmenting it. So what this data is supposed to do is, we're going to share it with the government or with people in the private sector, any person any relevant actor in the job creation space, because this data is necessary for them to know which, like for instance, in which industry have people lost most of their jobs, because the job loss that has been caused by COVID-19, the effect is disproportional. Like even the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics said that it will affect certain groups more, like women and the youth and people who work in manual jobs. So we have used only 1,000 Kenya shillings to create a solution to this problem. And I'd like to issue a challenge to each and every one of the stakeholders who are here. Even in the comment section, you're seeing how the youth are saying we are constantly coming up with innovations, but we cannot get anyone from the government to listen. We cannot get anyone from the private sector to listen. So this is a challenge I'm issuing to each and every one of the stakeholders who are present here. The website is active, it is up. All we have achieved right now, we already have over 60 users on the platform. We launched it 2 hours ago. We already have over 60 users on the platform. We already have a job listing on the platform with only 1,000 Kenya shillings. If we were able to get this site outside more, if we were able to get more people aware of it, it could do so much for us. And for instance, like what Brenda was saying, with the opportunities like with the embassy, with the Netherlands embassy, these are opportunities we are not aware of. So when we create the database, we also centralize these opportunities for youth, so that when if you're looking if you want to volunteer, if you're looking for an internship, you go to the database and all of this data will be available for you. It will be easily accessible. Also, one last thing to say, we are focusing on something that's called the gig economy. So the gig economy is based on connecting clients online to businesses, or even businesses looking for clients online. So the difference with the gig economy and what we have right now in the job market is, the gigs are one-offs. They are one-offs. So you do a job and you're paid for it, and it ends there. And we see that as the future of the job landscape post COVID-19, because especially like right now, I'm not sure if you're active on social media. Just this weekend, you would have seen a video by one Alvin Gatitu. Alvin Gatitu is a former Tusker Project Film contestant. He has a large following on social media. Over 15,000 people follow him on social media. He's an influencer by all means. But even a man in his position, on Sunday he posted a video saying that he just slept in a watchman's booth because he'd been locked out of his house. He said his business wasn't working. So with a person like that, we can give him gigs because he's a social media influencer. He can host events, even online meetings like this one. He can host such meetings. So we're also looking at the gig economy in Kenya. It's already worth $109 million. The Kenyan gig economy. It already employs 35,000 Kenyans, and the projections were that it would grow over the next 5 years by 33% annually. It would grow that by a third annually. so that by 2023, the Kenyan gig economy would be worth approximately $400 million, and it would be employing close to 100,000 Kenyans. Now, this assessment was done before COVID-19, which means with the migration that has been forced by COVID-19, moving more businesses online, with more people losing their jobs, the gig economy is only set to employ more people. And another advantage of the gig economy is that as we've said, companies, even companies like Google and Tesla, are moving away from looking at only academic qualifications. They're looking at skill sets these days. So you'd come in, you do the interview, you demonstrate your skills. So the gig economy gives space for youth to demonstrate skills like that. I, for instance, am a law student, but I'm the president of a social entrepreneurship club. If we were to go by my papers, I would never have made it to being the president of Enactus. But because I was given the chance to demonstrate my skills, I have gotten here. Therefore, that is why we are mostly focusing on the gig economy, because first of all, by requiring those qualifications, it is very accommodative for the youth. And also,
Mark, just hang on a second, because you've raised a number of several issues that I want us to get into a little bit more. I mean, I think you've talked about the gig economy and the creative and entertainment sector, but I guess there's also a challenge in terms of giving users of that, an experience. It may not be the same as what they had before COVID, when people were able to be at a party or at an event or at a festival or concert. So I guess there's a number of things there, like just making sure that there's an experience that is perhaps different, but one that is worthwhile. I mean, I think there's also the issue of, yes, there's a lot that's happening online, but access and affordability of the internet in this part of the world, it's still relatively expensive. And then you also mentioned something about gathering data. And Mohammed, perhaps we can talk about this. Perhaps gathering data would be the next big thing just now, while we're still figuring out what happens, and as we're trying to beat the pandemic, as governments and health systems are trying to figure that out. But perhaps data would be important, don't you think, just to understand who's doing what is the need assessment? I don't know what your thoughts are on that, as well as leveraging on technology, which, I mean, of course, Giza does quite well.
Okay, well, thanks, Yvonne, for directing this question to me. Actually, that's the point that I really was looking forward to talk about already. But before talking about the data itself, let me get to a point that Dr. Martin mentioned while he was grabbing some points here and there, and that they need, from the educational or the academic point of view, they need to do some kind of narrowing for the gap of the skills. Let me talk from a private sector perspective. Actually, the skills gap coming even to the organizations working on the field today. You cannot imagine the challenges that all of us faced once when the pandemic started. Okay, each organization in the market right now trying to find a new way to deploy their solutions, a new way to manage their teams, even in such remote ways, a new way to do their own services. Okay, as we said before, there are many jobs have been lost, but there are new doors for new functions have been opened already. The data that we really see that it is very important to be recognized today. Actually, it is the market data. Let me make it more simple. It's all about demand and in the market. Okay, but coming from a technology company, let me tell you that we kept trying to introduce new concepts, new solutions, new technologies to the normal way of business, and that kept having some kind of resistance. That completely changed today from a new idea to a demand. Like when we started to introduce the IoT concept to the East African market, that was something like 4 years back. Everyone was struggling to understand the idea. Everyone was struggling to understand how they can adapt this to their normal business processes. Today, everyone's talking about an IoT platform. Even the university students talking about IoT platform. Think about it from the organization operational perspective. Even most of the private organization and firms right now trying to adapt the IoT platforms in their services, in their operation, to develop the way that they do. The second point is actually the centralization. You know, when the pandemic starts, you know, operating remotely became hectic and a new thing to everyone. It's not about communicating, it's about operating. Like how we should do a project running in Uganda while all our teams in Kenya and so on. So the whole concept of centralization or having resource centers in one area like India, like Egypt, like somewhere, completely dead. Right now, every organization trying to make sure that they have several resources everywhere. And thanks to the technology and the digital communication technology, today it provides this kind of accessibility and availability to have different resources everywhere. All this open doors to the youth, actually an open doors to the new ideas that coming in. In my company specifically, we started to think seriously about those sites that we should do maintenance remotely for it, while we cannot access the site. One of our young engineers were proposing some ideas about a remote access to this kind of sites that need some kind of an how I can say that research and development, but we started that already. The same what I'm telling you right now is happening with everyone. Every organization struggling today to find a new way to operate, and it's all about how the demand changed in the market and how the new situation or the new normal that we're living in became today. So that's it. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, and interesting what you're talking about. Companies are also trying to figure things out themselves as they go. So Martin, back to you. What's the future? I know we've talked about now just zeroing in and narrowing to the gaps that, or rather to the skills that are probably needed right now in the industry that solve the problems that we have here, you know, necessity being the mother of invention. And if you seek to solve a problem, then, you know, you have a great innovation. I know you want to comment on what Mohammed has said, but is there thinking already as well, even as you come in on that, on 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now, what sort of skills will be needed in the longer term, medium to long term?
Oh, okay. Thank you. Maybe before I respond to your question, a word of caution maybe to the young people and young entrepreneurs. They should also be cautious so that their ideas are not taken away from them and they fail to benefit from people who take advantage of their ideas. They see they have a lot of potential, and somebody grabs the opportunity, and then they are left alone. So they should also be very cautious whom they approach for funding, and if the funding opportunity is there, a very clear guideline on who remains with what if the business opportunity is successful. So a clear guideline on the benefits they are supposed to get and so on. Coming to your question, two things. Number one, some of the skills that I foresee that would be very important in 2-3 years ahead. Number one is data analytics. So a lot of data is being generated, but what do we do with this data? Industries have a lot of data, but maybe they require somebody who can make sense of that particular data. Number two, I'll see skills in terms of revolutionizing how we do business. Each and every business we require to little did we know that, for example, little did we know that people can be forced to work from home because of a pandemic. And since we were not prepared, a lot of things were not in place. because maybe you don't have a very good working space at home, or maybe you don't have accessibility of this particular data. Most of the telecommunication industry, what they have done is to try to increase their coverage of their internet and affordability, but we have not yet reached there in terms of affordability. But each and every young people now is supposed to be perfecting their skills as far as technology is concerned, because I also see an opportunity for universities or training institution where they have to go virtual. I don't need to be in class for me to undergo a particular training. So we need to revolutionize the way we do things, and so people who have already embraced virtual, they are making a team right now, because I'll be able to learn at the comfort of my home and so on. Thank you.
So there's something interesting here. I'm seeing in the comment section, and perhaps I might invite some of you to actually turn on your mics. Nashan Adaro, you've been quite active. Thank you. I see here you say in the chat section, drops of skills and the notion of academic qualifications. Do the panelists agree that this is a fitting analogy to the trend of higher education training in Kenya? Nashan, perhaps you can turn on your mic and expound on this point a little bit more, and then we can have the panelists speak to that a bit more. Nashan?
Yeah, thank you, Yvonne. That analogy of drops of skills in an ocean of academic qualifications is, in my view, fitting, because we have so many graduates with so many papers, first class honors, second class honors, up division. But when they enter into the marketplace, they find that they are ill-equipped for the job market because of a training mode that is not imparting industry-relevant skills. And this was a discussion in June last year in Fiji, where I participated, and that was the analogy I gave, which was fitting even the Pacific Ocean, which is the major water body in that area. So you can see, you just have a few drops of salt in the ocean. Will you even feel the effect? No. And I think this is what is ailing the job market, and industry has to reciprocate by partnering with the universities as early as possible so that they can co-mentor the students, and the students can finally enter the job market with market ready or job ready skills. So that is the exposition I would like to give as the panelists critique or agree to the sentiment. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Nashan. You raise a very important point. That Federation of Kenya employers reports that I highlighted in the beginning talked about how most employers say they're spending up to 20,000 shillings retraining young people they get to get them job ready. And I know there's been an arrangement they've had with the Kenya Association of Manufacturers, and I guess that is looking at what is happening in that sector, but so is Enactus with trying to just sort of get young people and their skills, get them to market them, get them market ready, teach them how to pitch, how to seek financing, how to put your project proposal together. So I think there's lots of avenues, but perhaps Martin, you might want to respond to Nashan on that, because I think this falls right in your lap in academia. And then maybe we can have Mohammed talk about what's the greatest skill gap that he sees, and therefore opportunities now post-COVID.
Okay, I agree with the Nation, and as I was I said Enactus Kenya is trying to narrow or bridge this particular gap where academia and industry are talking. It's not only for to produce the graduates and then they absorb from there. In my view, I foresee a situation where each and every industry allocates a particular fund that is geared towards research and development, and they identify a particular university that they can work with, so that these particular students that are being trained, they are working in reality of what is happening in academia. That is what in the industry, sorry, and that's what most of the developed countries try to do, so that whatever comes out from, if for example for higher degrees programs, they identify professors that can be given that particular funding administered by the university. And then they identify students who can work towards particular projects that have been brought up by the industry, so that the solutions that come from that particular kind of research immediately goes to the industries to better their services.
Right, yeah. I mean, and perhaps for those who are not aware, that is exactly what Enactus seeks to do, right, James? I mean, I remember when we went to California, there's lots of, corporates who are now going to universities, who are now going to students and saying, look, what innovations do you have? And lots of students and young people who are saying, we have this innovation. There's been a great sort of effort and attempt and some successes, right? With linking young innovators straight to market. Doesn't even have to wait for graduation as long as the idea is viable. Maybe James, you can speak to that and just let everybody know quite a bit of what has been done over the years.
First of all, I thank all the panelists for their brilliant points and also suggestions. The good news is one of the companies on board in this panel, and that's Giza System, partnered with us last year specifically to do this. And as Muhammad was pointing out, even there was a trial moment with one of the universities to come up with some special generating equipment. And this is something we are still thinking about. And I think the loose end we figured out last year was about what Dr. Magu pointed out earlier about the intellectual property rights, the issue of patents, how do we protect this? And this year, we were able to get a patent attorney who has now joined our network, meaning that all the activities we do at Enactus before a company signs with a student or a university, we also second a patent attorney just to ensure that they are doing the agreements from an informed point of view. So already Giza is one of the partners with Enactus that has pointed out that they are very much ready to actually adopt a university, to work with a university or to work with the students, but it's just a framework that we are looking at. And I'd like to add from the government point of view as well, they have also created a competition amongst the universities in terms of how many patents do you record per year. So when we look at that possibility, it means also from the Kenya government perspective, they have started really making it easier that all the knowledge that is locked up in our shelves at the university starts getting out through making sure it's first of all protected. And then now the next phase is how do you commercialize this? And I think this is what Brenda was talking about when she said scale. Because whatever you come up with, like what the young man was talking about the website, what about scale? Because when we are talking about the world that is digitally connected, it means that if you have a solution just for your village and it cannot apply to the bigger village, what I'll call the digital village, then your innovation might just remain in your pocket, you know. So the scale that Brenda talked about is very important. And then in terms of how to actualize this, I've just mentioned Giza is part of the leading companies on this issue in Kenya, and we have more partners that are also interested in this. And just finally, because I know about time, what we are trying to do is to encourage our young people. We are going into a new world, and this new world, people are losing jobs. But as Muhammad said, as they lose jobs, it's just repurposing the jobs, meaning you rename the job. If you are a waiter, maybe sitting in a hotel, but now you're in the delivery, you see, you are simply repurposing what you are doing before, but in a different format. So it's not really about losing. I know it's painful, but the real issue here is repurposing. Thank you.
Repurposing. Mohammed, I will come to you in a moment. Just give me a moment. Najda is here. Najda has worked a lot with the young people, with the members of Enactus, and just getting them skilled, getting them ready, and helping them out with getting that idea from what is essentially an idea to something that is a pitch and that is a viable one as well, that you would walk to Giza Systems and any other. Najda, what are your thoughts around that, getting us skilled, especially in the new world, in the new environment going forward? I know quite a bit of the work that you've done.
Okay, hi Yvonne. I wasn't expecting to be asked anything, so pardon that.
No, I always ambush you, and you've done quite some work with the young ones, so
Okay, great. So I think that if I got your question correctly, you are asking like what are the skills that we as Giza Systems, if somebody was to walk into our boardroom today and make a presentation, that's what you wanted to know. So I think something that I keep telling all the Enactus students whenever I meet them is research. It's such a big part in whatever it is that you're doing, because if you've researched everything that's, basically identifying what is a problem that's affecting your community or your region, and then being able to research if the world anywhere somebody's doing something like that, and on top of that applying both technology solutions and the UN Sustainable Development Goals, applying that into your project, already you're able to give the person that you're presenting to a valid scope of what your project is. I think many, and it doesn't really matter if you have the funds to put that project on the road or not, because if it is a valid point that you're bringing on the table, there are corporates out there who are ready to support you. But if you come onto the table with all that heat, all the data that we need in terms of what we want to hear from you, I think this is what I'd say that maybe 2 years ago may have been lacking, but as we've proceeded 2 years later, I think the students are doing an amazing job. There's been a visible difference in how that they're presenting their projects and how they're attacking the problems that they have in their areas, and I'd like to say that I'm very glad to see that, and I think that's my contribution to this.
Yeah, thanks, Najda. I think I've seen some really interesting ideas that have been coming out of people. And the one thing I've noticed about great ideas at work is ideas that seek to solve a problem within the local community and just helps to uplift that. And then that, sort of just definitely even would attract the right funding. Mohammed, I want to give you the last word as we close.
Thank you. I just want to add to what Najda mentioned. There is no new gap between what's happening academically and in a practical life. Actually, the gap is there from the beginning. Right now, we have a wider gap. Okay, what Najda was trying to do with Enactus and the teams for the previous period actually is narrowing this gap as much as we can in terms of skills, not even technical skills, but more into a systematical way of thinking to present your ideas, to put it on a right way and to analyze it on a right financial aspects. Okay, still, even coming from an engineering background myself, whatever we do in terms of a theoretical education happening in the academic side, completely different than the practical that we do on the other side. So I see that there is a serious opportunity happening right now due to the need that the private sector have because of the new normal. Okay, the private sector need to be more involved with the academic education, to mentorship different kind of programs, because actually, if we're talking about that students doesn't have a certain kind of technology education today, as I'm telling you, the gap is getting wider. So technology became a main education material right now. Some of the universities actually that we know and we're talking to in different countries started to set a program for innovation. So we have seen and witnessed ourselves a systematical way of innovation. So theories of innovation are there, helping people to come with the new ideas and to put it on the right track. We kept talking about disruptive technology coming to our life. Our life became very disrupted right now by everything. And I think the only solution to maintain this gap is the mentorship that has to be done by the private sector. And I'm sure that Enactus did a very good job for the past 2 years, publishing what they do, talking to all the private sector here and there. Thanks to Enactus, because they succeeded to get to different companies in the market, and I'm sure they will do even more than this very soon.
Thank you, Mohammed. I want to close this, but I want to just take a look at some of your comments, maybe for those who are not in the chat room. Brian, I think, was directing his at Martin, was responded. So Brian was talking about the biggest challenge could be with the increasing use of information technology. I guess the biggest challenge would be privacy and information warfare, that cyber insecurity is going to be a big issue. And Dr. Martin was right on point. I was going to say this, because this then provides an opportunity for such skills, right? I think with every crisis comes an opportunity. So I just want to wind up a little bit about what this was about. We're talking about entrepreneurship and opportunities, especially post-COVID. Brenda had talked about finding skills, or rather finding support outside necessarily of financial, because that might be difficult to do at the moment. Mentorship, seeking support other than financial. Maybe this is the time to build up your skills. We've had Dr. James Shipati talking about repurposing work, thinking in a different way. Mark really talked about having a strong online presence for companies. And I think we heard from We've had from Dr. Magu, who's talking about research directly applying to industry, and that companies should now start seriously thinking about allocating funds to research and development. And then from Giza Systems, we're just hearing about getting your ideas ready for the industry, and of course, thinking about them and presenting them in a systematic manner, and leveraging on technology and gathering of data that's going to be so important in making sure that we are ready for when things get back to normal. I want to thank everybody, all your comments, all your questions, for participating and being so kind with this one. This has been fun, and hopefully we will see each other on the other side. Please remember, everybody, to stay safe, particularly in Kenya. Yeah, wash your hands. The lifting of restrictions does not mean everything is okay. So we still want you here, alive and well, with your great ideas. Asante. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Yvonne. So we're just closing the meeting now, and we are going to the next session, which is to announce the winner of today's championship. So please, if you can join us in the other Zoom session, you'll be able to know which of the universities made it to represent the country in Netherlands. Thank you so much.